Hey everybody, it's Paul Carafotes. How you doing? You're listening and chatting with Staxx. Bill baby.
Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Paul Carafotes. What's up, Paul?
Hello, Bill. How are
How you
you
doing?
there in Bristol, Connecticut? Cold? Are you cold,
Yeah,
Bill?
freezing. It's freezing. Where you at?
I'm in Los Angeles, California at the moment in my backyard. Can you hear the pump from the pool? Did I cut the pump
Yeah.
out? Is that interfering with your sound? Trying
My
to be
hairspray
professional,
froze.
folks.
My hairspray
Yeah.
froze, man.
Being back east, I grew up in Boston, just outside of Boston, in a town called Somerville. And in the winter, when it would be blizzarding and freezing, and I would stand out and hang out on the corners, and my eyes would freeze shut because they would tear up. And it was so cold, and it would just freeze your eyelids shut.
Yeah, it's pretty
Those are
bad.
the
It
good old
gets.
days. I live here in California now for quite some time, so
Where you
it's not.
originally from?
I grew up
Let
in
me shut
Somerville,
this off.
Mass.
Oh, Somerville, Mass. Right outside of Boston?
Right outside, yeah, next door to Cambridge. Uh, just like a mile, really. I mean, the city I grew up in, it was called the City of Squares. City of Squares, because it was 1 square mile, and it had Teal Square, Ball Square, Porter Square, Magoon Square. I mean, it was just these little blocks, and each little section had its own square. So you'd go there and you'd go to shopping or look at the girls or fight, whatever
Did you know
was
what you
happening.
wanted to do when you were younger? Did you know what you wanted to do?
Well, after the Beatles, I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. That more or less changed the trajectory of my life, and I was only 4, but I knew that I wanted to be doing that music, or in which I do, because we have Sing with Charlie Bubbles, a CD, and we just have a new Christmas song. Of course, this is going to air after Christmas, but Charlie's Christmas Ride. It's available on iTunes and Amazon Music. Sing with Charlie Bubbles, which you will hear one of the tracks probably at some point. But uh, it was really, I was a sports kid. I played baseball and hockey, and around the 8th grade, I got the lead in the show at the school. And the first time I walked out on stage and said my first line, and 500 kids were laughing and seemed to enjoy what I was doing, that was another arrow. And then I saw Mean Streets with De Niro, and I left the movie theater going, playing,
Yeah.
Charlie Boy, trying to impersonate him. So that was another thing. And then my senior year in high school, I did a play. We did Some Like It Hot, but the musical version called Sugar. And I got the lead in that. And 3 things happened in succession. Got the lead, and then I got hired to be an actor. Somebody from MIT had come to see the show and then hired me to do this little movie, and he paid me. So that was interesting. And I thought, wow, I can get paid for this. Um, and the choreographer, who just passed away, um, Kenny Lonigan, he came up to me and he said, "Look, you're good looking, you got talent. You should probably try to go to New York and try this." And I took 2 jobs during the summer, not knowing which direction I was really going to go in. Now, these things were in my mind,
How
but
old were
what
you at that
happened?
time?
I was
How old?
18. So I was working for the city, and I was working on a Friday morning, and this car pulled up to the park. I was at Cross Park in Somerville, East Somerville, and I was working, raking the ball field. And this kid who I met one time, my old girlfriend sister had this boyfriend, and that's where I met this guy at her house once. And he just showed up at the park, and he's in his car, and he yells out, "Hey, Carafotes, you want to go to New York for the weekend?" And I said, yes, because when you say yes, anything's possible. When you say no, nothing happens. So I went to my boss and said, hey, I'm going to go to New York. I got to go to the bank, get some money. And I knew my mother was a very didactic woman. She was a teacher, a music teacher. So if I was going to try this, I would have to get three things. I would have to go to school, get a job, and have a place to live. So we had a family that used to visit, this Greek family that would come, that my mother went to high school with this guy, the Chris Chaklis. And I just went quickly into her phone book and wrote down their address and their phone number. Went to the bank, took $300 out. We drove to New York. I went to HB Studios and signed up and paid whatever it was, $150. This was in August of 77. And then I went to Cy Sims downtown and got a job working in the haberdashery department. And then the last stop on the way back out was in Queens, Glen Oaks, Queens, at the Chaklis residence. Knocked on the door, and Madge, the mom, opened the door. When she saw me, she said, I always knew you were going to come here. I said, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to move in about a month and I need a place to stay. And just to get me settled, I'll happily pay rent, sleep on the floor, whatever you got. And they agreed. So I went back home. Now I had gone for 3 days. I had six brothers and sisters. There's 8 of us living in the house. I had been gone for the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This was Monday morning. I came up the back stairs and my father was reading the newspaper in the kitchen. He put the newspaper down. He said, hey, there's my son. What do you want for breakfast? I was, gone for 3 days. Nobody knew. And so that later that day, I think my mother came out on the porch. I was strumming my guitar and I was playing, and she said, what are you gonna do with your life? I said, Mom, I'm glad you asked me that. I'm gonna go be an actor. I'm gonna go to New York and be an actor. And she kind of like was taken back and like, what? Like, this is the first we're hearing of this. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna leave like September 4th or something, and I'm gonna live with the Chaklis. I got a job and I signed up for school. And she said yes. And the only reason later I found out that she said yes was because she thought I'd be homesick and be home in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
And
you
that
changed your
was
mind.
that was a long time ago, and I've never been back since. To visit, yes, but I never moved back.
How much
And
different was it going to New York? How much different was it from where you were living with your family?
well, that's the big thing. I mean, the first, I was lucky that they let me into their lives. And I got to them, they had a daughter and a son. And, it was a little tense with Lisa, the daughter, but we got along. I was only there for 4 months, and then I moved into Manhattan. But that job I had at Cy Sims and going to class was down in the Village. So from Glen Oaks, Queens, was 2 buses and 2 trains to the Park Street last stop in Manhattan. So I was up at like 4:15 every morning to make it to work by 7:30. And
That's a
it was
lot.
crazy. Oh, it was crazy.
All
But I
those
was very
trains
home.
and
I was
everything.
home. Yeah, yeah. I was homesick.
Yeah.
I saw my dad's face all the time. Like I'd get on a train and I'd see a guy. I go, that's not my dad. And I was homesick. But I was studying acting, and about 18 months later, I got a starring role in a 20th Century Fox movie called Heading for Broadway. I played a kid from Philly, Ralph Morelli, who wanted to make it on Broadway. And I got that job, and that, within a year or less than a year from then, maybe 7 or 8 months later, I moved to Los Angeles. The movie came out May of 80, and I just moved to Los Angeles with Rex Smith, who was starring in the movie with me. He was a teen idol at the time. He had a big hit song called You Take My Breath Away. And all the girls, he had a lot of coterie of young ladies following us around. It was quite fun. Young man
Yeah.
of
So
20 years old, starring in a movie with this guy. And we had, kicked the ball a little further down the road. I moved to Los Angeles, and that's what happened. I
when
guess that's the
you
end of the
how
interview.
yeah, right. All right. Hope you guys all enjoyed this. See you later. So how long did you stay in New York for?
I got there in 77, right? So September of 77. In 79, so 18 months later in June, I got the movie. We finished the movie in September, and I moved to LA in March of 80. So was really in New York, maybe all told, um, 2.5 years, close to 3 years. And then
Now
I came
when
to Los Angeles. I've been in LA ever since. I mean, I've been back and forth to New York. I've worked. I did Damages in the third season. There's about 6 episodes on that. I did a pilot. I worked with Mickey Rooney for NBC. I tested for a pilot with him. So I've been back and forth many times to New York since then. But in fact, there was when I met Gandolfini, we did a movie together called The Italian Movie in '92, I think. And my father had just passed away. So I went back to Boston, stayed with my mom for a while. And then I went to New York and I got the movie and I met Jimmy. And that was the beginning of a wonderful relationship. I met him on a freezing February blizzard. I had to get on a train and go to Brooklyn to start shooting this movie. And I found it. It was so cold. It was just, one of those storms where it just hit you, pelting you in the face, and you're like, oh, it stings, and it was cold. I found this church in Brooklyn, pushed the door open, I walked down the stairs. There was a little shaft of light coming from a door, and it was a kindergarten Sunday school room. So everything was little chairs, little tables, and I pushed the door open, and there was one person sitting across the room in a little chair at this table with his hand wrapped around a bottle of Zambuca. And it was Jimmy. And I walked over to him and I said, "Baby, you're the only one that understands me." And I grabbed the bottle from him and took a shot. And it was a long. We had a very very close relationship. We lived with each other for a while. You live with me in Los Angeles at the beach. I have a bee that's settled on my camera. Ooh.
I
Oh,
know our connection is pretty bad. It keeps
is it? I
keep
wonder if.
yeah.
Let me try something if you don't mind.
I
Maybe
don't
I'll
think
shut the
it's
Wi.
you. I think it's me, honestly.
Oh, really? If I shut the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi off, would that help?
No, that would probably make it bad. The
Really?
Wi-Fi probably helping it, yeah. We're good right this second. So, when you move to Los Angeles, is it a lot different from New York?
Oh my God. Well, it's so, first of all, the sun shining, the ocean. First time I saw the Pacific Ocean, and I was standing on Ocean Avenue above PCH on the Santa Monica cliff, looking at that like vast, beautiful, glimmering ocean. And the beaches were like huge, like the sand went from, it was like almost a mile to get to the water. And it went all the way up into Malibu. And I look as far as you could see, and I was going, oh my God, people live here. And I had a buddy of mine that said, don't tell your friends how great it is here. Because he goes, we got enough people. We don't want any more people.
It's loaded with people there now, right?
Now it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that was 1980, that's a long
Yeah,
time
there's
ago. I was 20. I
millions.
turned 21 when I moved here. I made a trip a year earlier with my cousin. We came out and got into all kinds of trouble. He ended up getting arrested on Sunset, coming out of the Rainbow Bar and Grill, the very famous Rainbow, which I ended up hanging out and did a show next door at the Roxy Theater back in '84. But he got arrested, and I was, driving around 20 years old. I just turned 20. Actually, I turned 20 on that trip, and it was like our second night or something, and he got stopped, pulled over. They took him to jail, and I was like, yeah, I'm in this car. I don't know what the hell, where I'm going, where we were staying. That was kind of a nightmare, uh, but we made it out of Los Angeles on that trip. But I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. It was beautiful. It was a
What?
beautiful place. I had no idea really, like, what Hollywood was like
Yeah,
until I moved here and started working in the business. And, there's a lot of stuff that you don't know. You have an idea in your head what you want to do, what you want to be. but you don't know the inner workings, and you don't understand that, how crazy competitive it is, how people can bullshit you quite a bit. You don't know who really your friends are. You don't know what they want from you. You want something from them. I mean, it was and I was a young kid, and but I made it through.
Trial and
I worked.
error, right?
Hmm.
And so what did
Yeah.
you think of the people out there? Because there's a lot of people
Well,
trying to do the same thing. So there's a lot of really shady people,
yeah. I
right?
mean, the
Like
business draws.
cutthroat.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And the business also draws these fringe actors, and not actors meaning that they perform, just fringe personalities that want to be, like moths to a flame. You know what I mean? That con people. They're trying to get in your pockets, take advantage of you. All kinds of different ways. And
Yeah.
there's so you have to kind of learn what you're doing, and a lot of mistakes along the way. But the women, it was a beautiful place for the girls. They were really that song, by the Beach Boys is true. you know
Have you had any crazy? I know you have. Have you had any crazy situations happen to you out there in LA?
Crazy situations. Well, I mean, that's a
Yeah, that
wide
like
open
stand
question.
out in
What do you
your
mean? Well,
that stand out in your mind, like, oh shit, yeah, this like something that
when I was
stands
doing
out.
knots when I was doing Knots Landing, I didn't realize at the time how powerful television was, because I had done a couple movies. Now I'd done Heading for Broadway, then I did Choices with Demi Moore. I put her in her first movie. I cast her as my girlfriend in that. Both movies did not do much. Uh, Heading for Broadway played on HBO, so that got like a sort of a kick. Like people watch that and really love that movie because it's a feel good movie. It's about making it and all that. And so I got attention, from that when it played on HBO. But when I went on Knots Landing, it was like the Beatles. Like like suddenly I woke up and I was famous, like really famous. Like people were stopping their cars, yelling stuff, jumping out, football players, picking me up. My wife wants to meet you, and take me across Sunset Boulevard. And they introduced me to I mean, I had another experience where I was in the gym working out, and I look down, I'm washing my hair, and I look down, and there's another pair of feet facing me. And I look up and I go, this guy's completely dressed, and he says, "Do you love her?" And I go, "Do I love who?" And he's referring to the show. My character on Knots Landing, Harold Dyer, was like, in love with Donna Mills's daughter. And I said, "Do you mind if I finish taking a shower, and I'll meet you in the lobby, and you can ask me some questions." So that, like stuff like that was beginning to happen, where you were being followed, or people were following you, girls. It was a lot of fun, exciting, but there were a lot of strange things that went on. But it was fun.
People believe it. They think it's real, right?
Well,
So
yeah. Well,
invested.
that's good because when you're in the movies, you're huge, big screen, you go in. So when people see you in a movie and then meet you on the street, there's a little bit more reverence, or they're a little taken back by it. When you go into somebody's home every Thursday night at 10 o'clock, they
Yeah,
think I know them. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It switches, the sort of dynamic switches, and it's this other thing that goes on. Like people are so into it, into the character. Even now, today, there's like all these online Knots Landing groups, which I join, and I talk to the fans, and
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have this appreciation, I mean, if you spend your life, um, sort of not participating in your own life and sort of watching it happen, you kind of miss stuff. So, like, what went on, I still remember and hold dearly, that it was a great opportunity, and I have a lot of gratitude for it. And now I look back and I'm amazed that the people's who watch. There are other shows I've been on too, but that in particular, was a huge, very highly rated show. They got 20 million people a week watching that. And that was like we were
Wow.
like 17 in the ratings at the time, which was you're in the top 20, but if you got 17 million, like for instance, Tulsa King, which I just appeared in episode, what is it, season 2, episode 7, that gets 10 million worldwide. You know what I mean? But Nas
Yeah.
Landing was 17 million people in America. And and so it affected me like I haven't had quite this a similar experience before or since. That was when I realized that television was so powerful. It was a visceral reaction. People really believed they knew you
Yeah.
and that I knew them. So that was an interesting um, psychological twist to it,
Let me
if you
ask you this.
understand what I mean.
When you're involved with these productions that are big, you're getting a name for yourself, people are recognizing you. How do you move forward and try to top that? Because you try not to live off only one project that you do, right? So how do you move forward and
It's a good
try to
question.
top the next?
Well, you don't know. I mean, heading for Broadway, I had no idea. I'm starring in a movie, and the movie, all this attention comes your way within the business, and then everybody's waiting. You don't understand what the game is. So the movie comes out and played like in 10 cities, and everybody's in your ear telling you you're the next this, you're going to be the next Travolta, the next Pacino, and and then the movie kind of goes away and nothing really happens. And you go from living like in Beverly Hills to Hollywood. And now you're in a one-room apartment, you're broke again, and now you got to start the game, it starts again. You got to go you're only as good as your last job. And if that doesn't do anything for you, you got to get back in there and start throwing punches. So it takes an emotional and sort of psychic toll on your, personality, that you're expecting one thing and something doesn't happen. And then you get let down and then you got to sort of get back in there and, start throwing punches. Um, and you do a job and you think every job you go to, you think this is going to be the one,
This is
he
it.
did all the
Yep.
right moves with
That's
Cruz. Yeah, like
yep.
like that was my third movie, and in the beginning they wanted me to star in that movie. The producers and the director, Michael Chapman and Steve. And then Fox. And I had a movie that I'd done, my first movie with Fox, but they wanted Tom, and so the producers wrote the role of Vinnie Salvucci for me, to be in that movie. And so when I was filming that, it was an A-listed, it was Heading for Broadway was made independently and 20th released it. This was a 20th Century Fox A film production. I think they spent
Mm,
8 million on it or something back in '83, which is a lot of money.
yeah.
And I thought, when I was going to watch dailies, one part of the thing when we were on location, you get to know all the guys, you go out drinking, you're playing quarters, you're doing all these games with the girls, and they're, and then we're playing these characters, and we're there in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, shooting the movie. And Tom and I stole a cop car one night. Uh, I mean, that was kind of crazy, but I went to go watch dailies, which for those of you that don't know what that is, so whatever you shoot, say on Monday, you go to work Tuesday, and after work Tuesday, they watch what they shot on Monday. Right. So you go into a screening room and everybody sits down, and they allowed us to do that for like maybe the first few days. And then we were too rowdy and they said, you guys can't come to dailies anymore. But when I went to I shot most of the Vinny Salvucci character stuff was shot in the first week. So the first couple of days of dailies were mostly my stuff. And I remember after watching the first day of the dailies, I thought, I think I'm in my first really good this this movie, you know, it just had this feel that it was like I said, an film studio movie. They took good care of us. It was top notch, soup to nuts from the beginning to the end. The way They handled the actors and the production. It was great. You know, Lucille Ball produced that movie, if you can believe it. Gary
Yeah, that's
Morton, her
sweet.
husband, was a comedian. He was the producer on set. And I got along with Gary, and he used to say, "I'm sending all your stuff. We love you. You know, we're sending all your stuff to Fox. You know, there's other movies going on. We're going to try to get you hooked up into another movie." And that did not happen. But I thought that this movie was going to change my course. And the movie came out and didn't do much. I mean, it's much more popular now than it was when it was released back in '83. So you don't know what's going to be the one that carries you to that next level, you know? So like even after that movie, I had to start again.
Yeah, it's like up and down, right? It's like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, like, so, you know, from there, I think, you know, I forget what else I was doing. I mean, I don't know if you have my credit list in front of you there, but after All the Right Moves, I forget what I was doing, but I was working on television. I did, you know, Greatest American Hero. I did Trapper Johns. I did an episode of Hotel, which I loved. I played a director in that. I worked with Stuart Granger from the old Hollywood days, and we got along great. And that was, you know, so there were things, Robert Culp. There were people that I met and worked with. That was the kick that you were, you know, like at the back lot at Universal. And I was saying, look around and just take it in, thinking, how did
yeah,
I get
I
here?
do
How did I
have
get
it.
here? I'm from Somerville, Mass. You know what I mean? You know, it was just an idea, a thought, a dream in my head. And here I was working with these people. And so there was a
Or
lot of great, exciting things to it.
Journey of the Center to the Center of the Earth.